Hello, ladies and gentlemen. First and foremost, I would like to give my sincere appreciation for your precious time which you have given to me. Today I will be presenting to you my magnum opus, my greatest creation thus far. Just one more thing before I show you this incredible creation. I would like to say that, well, first of all, what it's called is the name I've given it. It's my trauma-based psychopathology model, is what it is. It's kind of like a 2D diagram. And I think it's worth saying that this model has the potential to improve anybody who has a mental disorder or any kind of psychopathology, to change their lives and to cure them totally and completely. This model is the master key. It has the power to unlock any and all mental disorders. Sorry, I got a little bit passionate there. So, allow me to show you this truly magnificent creation which I created. There are a few different versions. This is the final version. So, shall we begin our journey? First of all, at the bottom, we have trauma. This entire model is based on the notion that at the root of every mental pathology, whether it's an environmentally induced mental disorder like OCD, or I think schizophrenia often is, though maybe it can be, maybe it's possible for someone to be born with it. Either way, the central idea of this model is that trauma is at the core of any and all mental pathologies. So, as you can see, this diagram is essentially, my apologies, I forget what this shape is called, but as you can see, it's essentially two triangles. One of them is larger, but two triangles stacked on top of each other or connected, but without a line. Anyway, at the base, at the bottom here, we have this phrase, trauma occurs. Again, as I said, that is the central idea of this model. So trauma occurs, and there are different forms of trauma. So it can either occur through a single event or over time. If it occurs over time, that's known as complex trauma. Now, it's worth saying, you can see this arrow pointing here, but before I say that, it's worth saying that every person has a different threshold for trauma. So, for example, two people could be in a car accident. One of them could be left traumatized because, for example, let's say person A has a home life that's not stable, the relationships are collapsing, and they're just not healthy. Things are not in order in that person's life. And person B is living a healthy life, eating healthy, the relationships are strong, they're happy, at least overall. And so, both in the same car accident, same event, but one of them is left traumatized and the other one isn't. So, because of the fact that they both have significantly different home lives. Also, everyone's physiology is slightly different. So it has to do with threshold. It's a threshold issue. Some people have more sensitive physiologies than others. Myself, for example. I'm overall a pretty sensitive person. There's a relationship between this and the hyperbrain, hyperbody theory, which also happens to be true. But I digress. Back to the model. As you can see, it's worth keeping in mind that trauma first affects either the body or mind. It eventually, inevitably affects both, since the body and mind are inextricably linked, right? And they always will be, until we die. Then we leave our physical body, and then, Anyway, that's a whole nother topic. Again, I apologize for getting off topic. I am a little bit ADHD. Now, from here, once the trauma occurs, again, either through a single event or over time, one of two things can happen. So on the left, we have sort of the body, and on the right, we have the mind, you could say. It's a rough way to look at it, but you could look at it that way. And that I would not say that that's inaccurate. I would say that's pretty accurate. So on the left, what can occur is negative energy enters the body. Now, what is negative energy? Well, I suppose it's rather obvious, but it's the opposite of positive energy. So, love is the greatest power in the universe, right? Love is connection. That's what it is. Hate is the opposite. Hate is sort of the ultimate form of negative energy, we could say. And it's disconnection, the opposite of truth, the opposite of connection, the opposite of love. So, negative energy is essentially a less intense form or version of hate. So, negative energy enters the body. Excuse me. I ate some Cheez-Its earlier. Negative energy enters the body. I'm sorry. I thought I could do this without laughing. Okay. And then, negative energy, the second point here, is that the negative energy eventually disrupts physiological functioning. After this happens, at some point after that, or, well, very shortly after that, the body believes an untruth or a lie. Now, I'm using the term belief. I say belief kind of in quotes, although it's not in quotes, because as far as I can tell, that's the right word. You could also say thinks. The body thinks something is true. For example, it's producing too much energy because it believes that it needs to for whatever reason. Again, it has to do with the negative energy that entered the body and disrupted the physiological functioning. But I think the way it's worded here makes sense. The body believes an untruth. Then, after that, the chakra system, which is non-physical, starts functioning unnaturally because the physiology is disrupted. The physical body is disrupted and not functioning properly. And again, we have to remember the mind and body are inextricably linked, which is why this occurs inevitably at some point. After that, well, the consequence of that is that energy cannot flow naturally. Just, they say we're all born connected to ourselves, and that's true. Then eventually, because of society and various factors, we become disconnected. We kind of lose ourselves, right? For me, this started happening around high school. That's why I dreaded going to high school, because I knew this would happen. Anyway, again, I'm getting off topic. My apologies, sincerely. Energy, that's what happens whenever we become disconnected from ourselves, is that energy stops flowing naturally, as it should, right? Which is why the chakras exist in the first place, to regulate energy throughout the physical body. So that happens. Energy cannot flow naturally, and the result or consequence of that is psychopathology, some sort of psychological disorder or mental disorder. Could be OCD, could be an eating disorder, could be GAD, or some anxiety disorder, could be depression, could be addiction, someone starts drinking, whatever it may be. They're all some form of psychopathology. Now, That's the left side of the diagram. Let's now traverse and explore the right side, which in my opinion is, well, it's equally as important and just as interesting, in my opinion. In my humble, oh so humble opinion. So, oh, also, I forgot to mention, the arrows are red on the left side because of blood, which is part of the body. And the arrows are purple on the right side. I think I actually explained this. My apologies once again. I should have prepared more thoroughly. The crown chakra is purple, so that's why I chose purple for the color of the arrows on the right side. Because, again, this is sort of the mind side. So, again, we have trauma occurs either through a single event or over time. And then the other thing that can happen is that, well, first of all, sorry, I just realized something, but it's okay. At some point, an untrue thought enters the mind. Now, sorry, again, I'm realizing something. I might have to add something more to this, which is not surprising because I keep finding new things to add and new ways to change it. Anyway, my apologies once again. Let's continue, shall we? An untrue thought enters the mind. Sometime after that, the untrue thought is eventually accepted. And then that leads to the formation of a false belief. So, never mind. Sorry. I've just realized the solution to what I was thinking. Anyway, sorry, ADHD. Bit like Nick Miller, but anyway. The untrue thought is eventually accepted. Then after that, the result of that is that the mind believes in untruth. Whereas over here on the left-hand side, we have the body that believes in untruth. But on the right-hand side, we have the mind that believes in untruth. This is obviously a problem because excessive negativity leads to lies, which then leads to disconnection. It's basically the entire thing that this model is based on. It's based on that proposition, you could say. So, after the mind believes in untruth, the physiology starts functioning unnaturally because the chakra system is disrupted. Again, the mind or the soul or the psyche is non-physical, the body is physical. So again, over here we have the chakra system starts functioning unnaturally because the physiology is disrupted. But over here, it's just the opposite because the trauma entered the mind first. So the physiology functions unnaturally because the chakra system is disrupted and not working as it should. Then after that, the consequence of that is the same as on the left-hand side. Once again, energy cannot flow naturally. And that's a problem. I think it's raining outside, but that's besides the point. Again, I want to focus on this because it is, as I said, truly magnificent beyond imagination and beyond belief. Energy cannot flow naturally. And again, same as is the same on the left-hand side. The consequence of this is the development or the emergence of a psychopathology of some sort. So, also, I just realized something. This is an important thing to note, and it's worth saying. The right side is essentially environmentally induced mental disorders, which can have a genetic component. So either way, both sides matter equally. But then the left-hand side is, or can be, mental disorders or pathologies which are not environmentally induced. For example, autism, or ASD, I suppose is the proper term. And we do want to be proper. We want to be elegant, articulate, proper, and formal. Which is why I'm wearing a suit. So, but for example, with autism, there is an origin, obviously. something is happening in the body that shouldn't really be happening. So if we can find that origin, again, at some point, whether it's, say, so if someone has autism, maybe it goes back to their great-grandfather, right? Something happened, something traumatic happened to him, and that led to certain genes in his body becoming active. Again, I don't know too much about autism, so I don't want to overextend myself. But let's say that's how it works. And then, whenever he reproduced, he passed those genes because they were on after the traumatic event. They turned on. He passed those genes onto his child, which would have been this hypothetical person's grandfather, which then, because he never dealt with, well, it's generational trauma, if you've heard of that term. Whenever he had kids, he passed it on to his son, which would be this hypothetical person's father. And then again, his father never dealt with that trauma, so he passed it on to his son, or this hypothetical person. And yeah, so that's why this hypothetical person has autism. Okay. I believe I have successfully delineated this, once again, truly, truly breathtaking, magnificent, incredible, and shockingly profound model which I have created. Thank you once again from the bottom of my heart for your time and for your attention. It means so much to me. So much. I could cry. Because your time and attention means so much. And I also want you to know that you are a beautiful person. We are all beautiful, as Nick Miller has proven. And yes, we can all be dysfunctional, which is why I've created this model, to try to decrease unnecessary suffering in the world. While that is true, we are still all beautiful because we're all united by our Creator. Have an amazing day / night / afternoon / evening.